Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today on Masechtas Menachot daf Pei Tes. We are going to begin on the very top of Pei Tes and Aleph, the top line. Chatzi lug shemen l'toida. So we mentioned that there are different kalim which were used in the Beis HaMikdash with different measures because each of them had a different purpose. So the measurement of half a lug of oil was for the sake of the toda. Tanya, Rabbi Kiva Omer. Why does it say the word shemen twice? And Rashi quotes chalos matzos bulos b'shemen, v'kika matzos meshuchim b'shamen. Why does it say it twice in the pasuk? So ilu nemar elo b'shemen echad. If it only said it once, I would say harihu kachol menachos l'lug, that you would think that it has the same din as any mincha offering, in which the amount of oil is that of a lug. Achshav shekasu b'shemen b'shemen. The fact that it says it twice, havi riboy achariboy. So this is considered to be an inclusion after another inclusion. We know in riboy ela achariboy ela lamayit. So it's almost like a double negative. So when you have a riboy, then another riboy, it's really a miyut. So therefore, miyuta hakasav l'chatzi lug. So even though it's true that most menachos is a lug, so this teaches us the fact that it says it twice that you only need to have chatzi lug. Okay. So riboy acher riboy. What do you mean a riboy after a riboy? Chad riboy hu. It's really the same thing because you're saying shemen twice. So what do you mean it's a riboy after another riboy? El ilu nemer b'shemen kol iker means like this. If it didn't say the word shemen at all in the pasuk, forget about it being said twice. I would say you would think it has the same status as any other mincha offering, which is the amount of a lug of oil. Now the fact that it says it twice, have a riboy achariboy in riboy achariboy elamayit. Miyitu akasav l'chatzi lug. Yochli yehi chatzi lug zeh mischalek l'shoishes minim. That you would think that when you divide it up, this half a lug, it should be divided for the three different minim, l'chalois, urakikin, uravicha. As we know that it has three different types of breads. One is challah, one is rakikin wafers, and then another is revicha, which is like scolded. So kishu aimer b'shemen revicha. So it mentions shemen by the scolding breads. Shentam l'lemer riba shemen or vicha. So it shouldn't have said it over there. So ketzad. So this is how you're supposed to break it up. It's not supposed to be broken out evenly. Rather, maybe chatzi lug shemen. You take the half and v'chatzu, and you split the half lug into two parts. Chetziv l'chalos rakikin. Half of that will be given to the two parts, the chalos and the wafers. The chetziv, and the entire half will be given to the scolded breads. Omer Rebbe Lezer ben Azariah Akiva Ima Tamar b'kol hayom kulu b'shemen. So even if you're going to have all these drashes of over and over b'shemen, enu shemelach, I'm not going to listen to you. El chatzi lug shemen l'toida. When it comes to this din, as well as a revius shemen l'nazer, as well as ve'echad aser yoim shebein nida l'nida halacha Moshe Sinai. So basically, he's saying these things are not derived from a pasuk, rather it's halacha Moshe Sinai, including the chatzi lug shemen l'toida, but also the revius shemen for a nazer, and the 11 days between nida l'nida. These are all halacha Moshe Sinai. Okay, says Rashi, who the chetzav v'chalos v'chetzav v'revicha v'lav mikra asi, mal mikra. He doesn't come around with pasuk. Okay, so belug hayamoided. So we would use a lug to measure. Turn about b'mitzayra ani ksiv. When it comes to mitzayra, someone who is an ani, it says isaron balul, that it should be a saron of flour, and it's going to be mixed up, v'lug, and there'll be a lug. Now, limad, what do we learn out from here? It must be al isaron shitoin lug dir chachamim. Namely, that for every isaron of flour, a lug is required. But this, in fact, we're going to see is a machlokas. So if it's 60 lug, 60 isaron, then you need 60 lug. From the Chemi of Rabbi Lezer, mafil mincha shel shishim esrainim, even if it's 60 esrainim, ein lo ella luga. You only need one lug of oil. Not that it's a lug per isaron, but rather a lug per mincha. Shenemar le mincha. Even for a large mincha, v'lug shemen. All you need is one lug of shemen. From the Chemi of Rabbi Lezer ben Yainkiv, hayisaron b'lug mayavidlei. So what do they do with this pasuk? It seems again when it says isaron belug, so what do they do with it? So who guf de ka amar rachmana leisi chad isaron. It just means that bring one isaron, and that for the mitzayra, that's what you bring. You bring one isaron. You don't need to teach us this din that you bring one for a mitzayra. We know that the mitzayra has to bring 3 different karbanos. And they have to bring 3 esronos of flour. So hacha the chad carbon. So here we're talking about 1 carbon. So obviously it should be chad isaron. Right? It's proportional, so it makes sense. There should be 1 isaron per carbon. The idach itzrach stachadel amina hoyel v'chas rachman aleha v'yisui bedalois. A mitzayra were lenient that he can bring flour because he's poor. So ema luli boy mina klal. Maybe he doesn't need to bring any oil, right? Maybe he doesn't have to do anything. The idach legamri lo ashkachan. No, to say that there no mincha at all, that we're not going to find. Rabbanan, hayla mincha v'lug shemen ma'yav. What does he do? Hahu misnadiv mincha. That when a person gives a mincha as a free will offering, shel pachais medavar hatayin lug. That a person should not give less than a lug. Umay nihu isaron. When it comes to to something which requires a lug, namely an isaron of flour, that's the minimal. V'idach tarti shma mina. We can actually derive both from here. Fine. Let's see if Rashi says anything over here. Okay. Shisha lapar. So 6 to a par. Arba la'ayil, 4 to a ram. Shloish keves. So minon. How do we know this? The pasuk says v'nischeihem, with regard to the libations, and this is part of the Rosh Chodesh davening. Chatzia hin yellow par. It says that you should have half a hin for a par. Hin, we know that a hin is trei aser lugi havin. A hin is 12 lug. So if we say chatzia hin, so that's equivalent to 6 lug. Dechsiv, how do we know it's a 12 to 1 ratio? And therefore, when it says chatzia hin, that means 6 lug. Dechsiv shemen zayis hin. Dechsiv shemen mishchas kodesh yeh. So zeh li l'dor seichem, and zeh is the gematria trei aser havyan. Is the gematria of 12, and therefore we see that there's this ratio of 1 hin is equivalent to 12 lug through this gematria. Look at Rashi. V'kasha loch ema trei aser revius halukasha dolashachan b'deraisa mida pchusim lug. So it's yud beis lug. Okay. Shloisha, so we have a little gematria there today. Shloisha mechsel menorah. So when it comes to the menorah, we take 3.5 lug, and it's chatzi lug l'chol ner, because it's a 7-branch menorah. So therefore, if it's 3.5, it's half each. So minahanimil the Tanu Rabbanan. The pasuk says me'erbad boiker, that it's supposed to be lit from night until the next morning. So tein lo midata shetehi delechas v'lechas me'erbad boiker. You have to put enough oils that it should be able to burn that long. Even on a long winter night. Davaracher me'erbad boiker ein locha avodah shekasheru me'erbad boiker ela zu bilvad. This is telling you this is An unusual thing because most avoda is done during the day, unlike the menorah, which is at night. Which makes sense, it produces light. They figured out that's how much oil you need from night to day. Okay. So the Ikadiyarmi Safra. Ikadiyarmi Milamal Lamata Shiuro. The Ikadiyarmi Mamata Lamal Shiro. Some say top down, some say bottom up. So Mandi Mamata Lamal Shiro Hatayra Chasal Mamanishal Yisrael. Mandi Aimer Mamal Lamati Shiro Inanias Mamakam Shiros. So let's understand this. They would start with a full lug, and it lasted actually much longer. Then they kept dropping it until they got to the exact amount, to the least amount to last the entire night. So some say it went from the bottom up, right? Which means therefore they didn't want to use extra oil because they showed mercy. On the other hand, they say, no, we started up because we don't want to act poor. We don't want Aeneas in the base of Mikdash. Okay, so look at this Rashi on the bottom. With regard to the 11 days between Nidal and Nida, means Shebein Sof Nidal at Chilos Nida, from the end to the beginning. Shiach Shekolato Shiva Shemei Nida, after she finished counts her 7 days of Nida, Sheisha Nida Shuv Eno Metchilos Lios Nida Ad Yud Alv Yoim. She's not going to be in Nida until 11 days later. They feel Imr Asadam, because even if she sees Dam after those 11, after the counting of Dam Nida, we call it Zivahi. It's considered to be Dam Ziva. If she doesn't see during those 11 days, El Yoim Echad or Beis Yom or Mitzufim, 1 or 2 days, or feel a Shloishi Yom Shenu Mitzufim, but they're not consecutive. Could go in Yom Tamev, Yom Tahar. So he Shemer Yom Keneged Yoim. She's considered Shemer Yom Keneged Yom, but Tavel Sul Yoim HaMachar. She goes to the mikveh the next day. Yom Shloishi Yomim Ra'asa Ritzufim. If it's 3 days, then she's a Zava Gedoyla, and then she would need to count for 7 days. But after the 11 days, Imro Adam, then she's in Nida. So then that's the idea, and that's all Halacha Moshe Sinai. Okay, let's look at question 7. Nechav Gemara, Kate says Shiuru Chatzi Lug Neros. How did they figure it out? So the one who says you started high and then you kept going lower, because the law of Dina and Milamata, we don't start from the bottom. Dan and Nias Mamakam Shiras. We don't want to like not have enough oil, and this shows we're being skimpy. On the other hand, from bottom up, law of Din Milamalwa, we didn't start from the top with a lot extra that we didn't need, because the Torah is Chasal Mamonishal Yisrael, because as we've said numerous times. Okay, this is the same as question TA8. So let's just see how they wrote it over here for the answer. L'chad lishna milmata l'mala dahainu shaschil b'pachais tatar chasal b'monashe Yisrael l'chad lishna milmata de'inanias mavacham ashiros. Okay, that's TA8. Same question as question 7. That was TA8. TB, a lot of these questions are the same. 11. Okay, we didn't get to that. All right, let's keep on going. Let's see the next Mishnah. So Ma'arvin Nixi Parim ben Nixi Elim. You're allowed to mix the libations that accompany a cow, to the Nixi Elim, to that of the ram. Why? So Rashi says like this: Miyayin v'shemen kaimer, with regard to wine and oil. Welcome. Marivin miyayin nixi parim miyayin b'nixi elim. Now v'afal gav, says Rashi, the par isle shloisha sroinim silas. Even though a par has 3 isaron of flour, the chatzia hin yayin, and half a hin of wine, as we said, of wine, v'shemen, and of oil. Well, ayil bezis sroinim silas. They actually don't have 3 esroinim like the par; they only have 2. The shlishas a hin. It's not chatzi hin, but it's a third of a hin, yayin. The chen shemen. Afal pikein ma'arvin zemazem mishum dishneim b'lilosin shava. It's a similar mix. Because if you look at the ratio, so 3 and then half, so then you go down to 2 and it's a third. So the fact that they're together, it's really, you're not going to see a difference in thickness and what's thicker and what's not thicker. Okay, so therefore that's why it's allowed. Even though, again, parim and elim are not the same, as we just saw. Nichse kvasim and nichse kvasim. You can also obviously mix nichse kvasim together with other nichse kvasim because they're the exact same. Shel yochid b'shel tzibor. We allow, if you look in Rashi, you could go in b'nichse musafin. So it says, imagine we're talking about the nichse of a musaf. Yishem der tirvayu b'lilas and raka. They're both the same consistency. Yishneim yesh gimel shem, and they're both the same amount of lug of oil. 3 lug, 2 on yisar and flour. Dichsev yisar and the kevis, etc. Okay. And furthermore, we say you can also bring shel yachid b'shel tzibor. That could also be mixed as we continue to pay tasim beis. These libations, the wine and the oil. Shel yoim b'shel emesh. From today, from yesterday's. Again, they're basically the same anyway. However, from kvasim to parim, that much we don't do. As Rashi says, so their consistency is different, and therefore you can't mix them. So again, in arvin nixi kvasim and nixi parim be'elim. V'im bolin, if you did elu b'fnei atzmu ve'el b'fnei atzman, let's say you already mixed them separately before, and then only after they've already been mixed in this arva, then only afterwards they got mixed between each other, then share. However, imad shalo bo apostle. If let's say they got mixed up before, they were mixed together, they were mixed by themselves, so then it's possible. Hakeves haba im ha'omer, when it comes to the keves, which accompanies the minchas omer on Pesach, alfal pi sheminchasu kfula, even though it's true that the flour amount is doubled in that case, lo hayu nechasav kfulim. Nonetheless, we don't double the nechasa, the libations. Okay, we'll explain that better. Says the Gemara. So Gemara starts over the question. The pasuk says v'hiktiru, that you shall be makter it. Now, what does that mean? Shlo arev chelavim b'chelavim. It means that you cannot mix up sacrificial parts with other sacrificial parts. So we see you're not supposed to mix together, even if they're the exact same. So how could this tell us that you could do it? So Rabbi Yochanan, im nisarvu ka'amar. It doesn't mean that it's a lachatchila situation. It just means that we if it happened b'di'evid, then okay, fine. But certainly lachatchila we don't want you to do this. So ihachi v'ein ma'arvin nichsi kavasim and nichsi parim ve'elim. It says you shouldn't do this. Not as mashma even b'di'evid you can't do it. They're feeling this arvu namiloi. Even if it was mixed like b'di'evid, it's not good. If they were separate, but they were already mixed separately, and then when it's v'nis arvu sharon, it says that it is kosher. It's machal the reis l'chadchil kamar. It's mashma the seif of our mission is talking b'di'evid. L'chadchila is what we're talking about. So Omer Rabbi, how can you say, oh, it just means you're never allowed to mix anything, it's just b'di'evid? What do you mean? Over here, the Seifa is talking about case of b'di'evid. It must be the Reish's l'chadchila. But that's a stira still when it says hakdiru. You're supposed to be makdir it by itself. So Omer Rabbi hachkamer. Ma'arvin yenon. So Abaya says, certainly, look at Rashi, vadi reishin masnisan tetanim arvin l'chadchilahi. Our Mishnah, you're right, has to be talking about Chadchila. So how do we understand our Mishnah? Because I thought you're not supposed to mix things together. Says Rashi, the masnisin begenois kamayir. We're talking about wine. Hachi kamer. Ma'arvin yenam shel nasachim. Regarding the wine. V'hadeh tani aval ein ma'arvin nixin chvasim nixin parim. If you'll heichaj is arav salasim v'shemnam, because that's b'di'evid. In nisarvin salasim v'shemnam. It just means that mixing the oil, if it was already mixed, the soilus and the shemen, and then the wine got mixed up. So you tell me wine not. Bosanya come the medivar more besayos for shemen of yain ma'arvin. It says you could. Mashmi l'chatchila. Omer by hachkamer hecha the hukter salasim v'shamnon that you already sacrificed it, and you burned it on the mizbeach already. Then ma'arvin yain l'chatchila because it was already done. But hecha deloy hukter if it wasn't done yet. Even this arv salasim v'shamnon ma'arvin nami yainam if it was mixed up. Fine. V'im lav, if not, ein ma'arvin, then not. Because dilma asil aruvi soyso shemen l'chatchila. Okay, so look in Rashi. Omer by heicha de k'omer the hukter kvar salasim shemen shel par ve'elim k'mitzvasen. You already did it, and then you already fulfilled the mitzvah. Then only afterwards it got mixed up. Okay, keves haboim oimer. So it said that when it comes to the keves, which accompanies on Pesach, the Minchas Oimer, Tanubana, Minchasoi, Shnei Esroinim, with regard to its Mincha, it's 2 Esroinim. So, when we see over here that it's the Mincha is doubled, because normally it's a Saron, and here it says that the Mincha offering is 2 Esroinim. B'liman al Keves Haboim Oimer, Sheminchaso kvul. So we say again it's double. Instead of 1 isar, it's 2. So Yachol Kashem Sheminchaso kvul kach yenu kafel. So maybe the amount of wine should also be doubled to be proportionate. Talmud Omer v'nisko yain revius a hin. It should be a quarter of a hin. So we don't double the wine, even though we double the flour amount to 2 esrainim. Yachol yehayeno kafel. Maybe we don't double the wine. Sheno nivel in minchasai. Because it doesn't get mixed in with the flour, because the flour was doubled. Okay, so, but maybe the wine doesn't get doubled because you're not mixing it in. It's a separate entity. Makes sense that maybe the oil, because the oil does go into the flour, so then maybe the oil should be doubled. So it's not true. Even though it's true, we double the amount of flour by the keves that accompanies the oimer, that mincha offering, we do double the amount, but we don't double the amount of oil, and we don't double the amount of wine. So my Talmuda, so in one place, the pasuk is referring to it in Lashon Nekeva, and one element it's in Lashon Zachar, v'niskai. Ketzad niska de mincha keniskai de yayin. So we say it's the same. What's that? My yayin revius. Av shemen nami revius. Just like the wine is revius, so to the oil is also the same amount, which means we don't double it. Amr Rav Yochanan, Ashem Atzayra. So let's look at question 8. B'ma nishtana keves haba ima omer mishar kfasim. So when it comes to a typical mincha, it's 1 isaron, but this mincha is shnei esrainim, and all the other kvasim is only again 1 isaron. But again, the oil and the wine elements, that doesn't change. That amount is the same. Okay. Let's slow down for a second. This is actually a very hard question. I'm hoping I'm going to explain it clearly to you guys. Question TB11. Ha'im mutal arv yayin shel parim, im yayin shel elim. Are you allowed to mix this? And he wants the maskana lafi shitas Abaye. Okay, so this is the correct answer. This is TB11. I'm just going to read it straight from the Gemara. Omer Abaye hachikamer arvin yenan. You can mix up the wine. Im nisarev salasan v'shamnan. If the oil and flour was already mixed in, then the wine can be, but otherwise not. We said that l'chatchila you could do the wine. So again, the maskana is this: El Merabaya hakamer heich de hukter salasan, where it's already been sacrificed, the soilus and the shemen. Then ma'arvin yain l'chatchila. However, hecha delo hukter, if it wasn't done yet, so imnis arev salas and shimnon, so if the flour and the oil was mixed in, then ma'arvin nami yenon, then the wine would be okay. V'im lav ein ma'arvin. that otherwise not. That's a hard answer. So again, if there's a difference between if you already were makter it on the mizbech, so if you already did, then the wine could be exchanged from one to the next, the par to the elim l'chatchila. However, if we didn't do it yet, it depends. If it was the flour and the oil was already mixed, then you could mix the wine to another one. But if not, you can't. Let's see what I wrote. But Mishnah, Tani Shemuter, Alpha Bishish. Okay, this is a completely wrong answer. Not going to read what I wrote. It's a hard test, so I'm not going to get too upset that I got it wrong. So I'm going to write over here, Heicha. So Heicha de Hukter. I'm not going to write this whole thing. Heicha de Hukter Salasan. Salasan Vishamnon. So if it was already brought on the Mizbech, then Marvin Yain L'chatchila. Okay? Then Marvin Yain L'chatchila. Then that would work L'chatchila. However, V'im Lav, right? V'im Lav, right? Then it depends. So im this arev salasan v'shamnan marvin nami yain. So im nis arev soilus v'shemen az yachol arev hayayin. V'im lav lo. Just read it that way. Okay. 2026. Very hard question. Got it really wrong, but what are you gonna do? All right, let's keep on moving. Okay. So Amar Rav Yochanan, Ashem Mitzayra. When it comes to the Ashem Mitzayra, there's so many different dinim when it comes to Ashem Mitzayra. Sheshachta Shol. So it was shechted without the right intention. So Tain Nesachim. We say it requires Nesachim, says Rashi. Kamo She'im Shachta Lishman. We don't care that it was done Shol Shma. You still have to bring the Nesachim. She'im Ata Oimerkin. If you don't say that, Pesaltai. What does that mean? It will be Pasal, says Rashi, Mil Yakriv. Al Gam Mizbech. To put on Mizbech. The L'Metzaira Lo Chazi. The Shahari Nishchat Shalul Shma. It's not fit for an oila, because it can't graze. In royal nedava, says Rashi, the ashim lo asim a nedava. An ashim cannot be a nedava. Of an asachim also mizbeach. So at least the nesachim can still be put on the mizbeach. But ashim kohanim v'sarach ashim acher lachshiro. You need another ashim. Okay. So Maskav Rav Menachot bar Gada el miyata kevas haboyim oimer. So which we saw in our Mishnah, with regard to the kevish that accompanies the Menachos Omer and Pesach, sheshachta shol shma. Let's say it was shechta shol shma to Menachos Kavula. So apparently you should still have to have the double amount of flour. She'imiyat Omer came salto. V'tamid shel shachar. Also, when it comes to the tamid shel shachar, shishcha shol shma. So a person shechted the carbon tamid without the right intention. So you tie in shnei grizim. You're going to say it also requires the 2 logs of wood. B'kayin echad shem iyata oimer kain pesalto. The tamid shel ben harbayim. You can say the same thing about the tamid shel ben harbayim in the afternoon. Sheshachta shel shmo. Yehetayin shnei grizim and shnei kohanim. So there, in the morning you had 2 pieces of wood with 1 kayin. In the afternoon there was 2 kohanim. Shem iyata oimer kain pesalto and a chinami. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's true. Okay. El amar Rabbi chadami nahu nakat. It just mentions one of the many others. Okay, says Rashi, "Enechinami that tzarich l'mevid lahu dinaihu." You still have to do it the right way. Ki'il nishchat l'shman, the same way, just like an Ashem Mitzayra, which you'd have to bring the nesachim. So to these other things, you have to continue to do it the right way. Okay. Rav Abba Omer Bishlam Mahanach Oilois Ninhu. I can understand all these cases. For example, as Rashi says, Kvasim the Omer v'Tamid sheshachtan shol shman. You can say the losrichu hilchasaihu kinimikar. You don't have to like do what was done before. You can say it's different because it's an oila. Sadia and Aleph. Because if it's not fit for an oilas chova, kirbil oilas nadava, right? So and therefore it doesn't need, like, for example, the 2 logs. El hacha, when it comes to asham atzayra, ilu mekinisla milse, if you don't bring it for its purpose with asham atzayra, asham nedava miika, there's no such thing as an asham nedava. So therefore you have no option. So maybe they're not the same. It wasn't put on the Mitzayra's earlobe and thumb and toe. It's still considered halachically an oila, the toyin nesachim, which is what the chiddush is. You still need to bring the nesachim. But of course, you're going to need to bring another asham in order to mater. Adkan.